Dr. Toiche, thank you very much for your time. Firstly, I'd like to ask you, crude oil prices remain at very high levels despite raises of oil outputs by exporting countries. Now, why is this?
Yes, I think there are a couple of reasons of higher oil prices. First of all, the market is very concerned about supply shortages of heating oil in the U.S. during this winter season.
Right.
Because the current heating oil inventory in the northeast of the U.S. is more than 30% lower than that of last year. As far as crude oil supply is concerned, there is not necessarily a shortage. The problem is the supply shortage of oil products now. In the U.S., no new oil refinery has been built for more than 20 years, and as a result, they face constraints of refining capacity.
Yes, I remember that has caused debate in the U.S. presidential elections during the summer. And what other factors?
Secondly, almost every OPEC producer except Saudi Arabia has no extra production capacity of crude oil because they increased oil production 4 times this year already. So the market is very worried about the possibilities of some supply disruption in the Middle East. If it happens, then no extra capacity of crude oil production. So the market is very much worried about the futures of oil supply. So that is the second reason. Thirdly, under these circumstances, oil futures market in New York.
Yes, I understand there's been a structural change in that market.
Yes. So now the crude oil price is overwhelmingly decided by the futures market. So as a result, very speculative movement very easily moves the crude prices.
Oh, so
it happens some violence in the Middle East, then some shortage would be expected, and then the price go up to $2 or $3 very quickly, easily. So therefore, the speculative money is dominating the price of oil under the current situation.
And probably exaggerating the price.
Yes, exactly. Volatility is amplified by the speculative movement in the market. So these kind of factors combined, the crude oil prices stay at high level, more than $30 per barrel, even though the OPEC increased their production 4 times this year.
Right. Now, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC, is apparently cautious of further raising its oil production in fear of a possible collapse of prices by increased supply. Do you believe this fear can be justified?
Yes, to some extent, I can understand their fear of a collapse.
Yes, you said earlier that they have already been supplying to their limited capacity.
Yes. If we look at the supply-demand situation in the world market, already the supply of crude exceeds the demand for oil. So therefore, the inventory of oil started to increase gradually. But the question is not so quickly increasing inventory as macro numbers of supply-demand indicate. But if the winter season approaching to the end next year, then I think the oversupply of crude oil will make greater pressure on downward pressure on prices. Therefore, OPEC countries, they schedule to have extra ministerial meeting early next January. They watch the market situation. If the price tend to decline, then they have to make some decision to cut production from early spring. So because the OPEC country, they had a very terrible experiences in 1998, collapse of oil prices.
Yes,
their economy is so damaged. So their memory is very vivid, I think. So they are very much cautious to avoid such kind of collapse in crude oil prices.
That's right. Now, what consequences have high crude oil prices had on the world?
Well, I think many things happened, particularly in the U.S. and Europe. The economy is very robust, therefore higher oil prices give a negative impact on the economy, particularly increasing inflationary pressures.
Yeah.
So they are very much concerned about the higher crude oil prices. If the prices go up further, then the economy will be damaged. And also many Asian countries, particularly Asian oil importing countries, are suffering very serious economic damages. For example, in case of South Korea, Thailand, and Philippines, these countries depend so much on imported oil. So the crude oil price increased almost 3 times during the last 1.5 years. So their economy is very much damaged. For their oil import bill accounts for almost 5% of total GDP, gross domestic production now. In case of Japan, just only 1%. So the impact of higher oil prices so serious on Asian developing countries.
I see. And I remember that in Europe, they have very high oil taxes.
Yes, particularly in case of England.
Yes.
Their tax share of gasoline retail price is almost 70%, the highest in the world.
Very high.
Therefore, a higher crude oil price made more trouble. Yes, truck drivers took actions to stop the price increases. So that's a very big impact on the European. So one major reason is not only the higher crude price, but also their currency, euro, is very much depreciated.
Yes.
For 30% for the year. Therefore, double impact, higher oil price and weaker euro. That is a very serious impact on the consumers in Europe.
So obviously, high oil prices have a huge impact on the world economy. But how has the trend affected Japan?
So far, the impact of the higher oil price to Japanese economy is limited because oil dependency of our economy is very much reduced for the last 20 years. But the problem is if the world economy, including Asian economy, is seriously damaged by higher oil prices, then Japanese economy depends so much on export. Therefore, our economic activity will be damaged by negative impact of higher oil price in the world economy.
Right. And how have households been affected?
So far, the impact is not so significant. For example, retail price of gasoline increased from 93 yen per liter to 105 yen per liter for the last 1.5 years. 15% increase or something like that. It's not so significant because
compared to other countries.
Yes. One major reason is Japanese yen is not depreciated against US dollars. The yen is appreciated too. So therefore, currency exchange rate is a very important factor for the impact of all importing countries.
So you don't see the third oil shock on the horizon?
Well, nobody can predict or foresee when the third oil crisis will happen. But as I mentioned, the surplus capacity of crude oil production in OPEC is almost none except Saudi Arabia. So if Iraq decide to stop oil exports, then we face a real shortage of crude oil, even if Saudi produce at the full capacity. Of course, we have strategic oil reserves. Therefore, we can depend to some extent, but we are not so easy situation, though we should be careful. So whether the third oil crisis will happen depends on the stable supply of oil from the Middle East. There are still uncertainties and risk of supply disruption. We should not forget about it.
I see. Now, what can be done to reduce or lower crude prices to a healthy or desirable level?
Well, it is not easy way even for OPEC to reduce the price, because the oil futures market are so dominant in the world oil market. But the oil producers and the consumers approaching to get together to stabilize oil market. Almost 10 days ago, in Riyadh of Saudi Arabia, International Energy Forum was held. That is a consumers and producers dialogue meeting.
Yes.
At that time, the producers insisted that they want to stabilize crude oil prices at a level 22 to 28 dollars per barrel. On the other side, consuming country, particularly the U.S., Energy Secretary mentioned that they want to stabilize oil price at $20 to $25 per barrel. Of course, there are still some difference, but the gap is becoming narrower. So that means for consumer and producer, the middle of 20s is a desirable, reasonable price level. That is, I think, some kind of consensus. So if the producers and consumers increase their cooperation and they send some message to the market, then I think we can, to some extent, succeed in stabilizing the prices.
Well, certainly stability sounds, or stabilizing oil prices sounds like the key word. No, of course, nobody approves of high oil prices. Now, thank you very much, Mr. Toichi, for your insights.
Thank you very much.